And we begin our program with Chinese President Xi Jinping's state visit to the UK. Tuesday, President Xi addressed both houses of parliament, taking the opportunity to highlight the many firsts of the China-UK relationship. The UK was the first Western power to recognize the People's Republic of China and the first EU member to establish a comprehensive strategic partnership with China. The UK is also the leading offshore RMB trading center after Hong Kong. The UK hosts more Chinese students and Confucius Institutes than any other EU country, and they were the first Western country to issue RMB sovereign bonds and the first major Western country to apply for membership of the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank. China and Britain are increasingly interdependent and becoming what President Xi from China calls a community of shared interests. And now let's take a closer look at some of the latest developments as the state visit continues.
A glowing welcome for the visiting Chinese leader, with some rare London sunshine as President Xi began his long-awaited state visit. Later, he addressed the joint houses of Parliament with an 11-minute speech in praise of the long-standing connections between the two nations. Quoting Shakespeare as well as ancient Chinese proverbs, Xi looked ahead to the possibilities of the future.
Shakespeare wrote, "What has passed is prologue." We are in an age of pursuing peace and development. It is also an age when countries have to meet challenges and work together. As a Chinese saying goes, a mountain can never be too high, nor an ocean too deep. This great new age enables both of us to join hands and move forward from the new departure point of our comprehensive strategic partnership.
Members of the British Parliament in attendance spoke highly of Xi's message.
I've heard lots of special speeches. I've been a member of Parliament for 23 years, and this was certainly one of the most thoughtful and special speeches. The final phrase was the really important one, that our relationship is growing and deepening, and that is a really important thing.
President Xi made a very fine speech. It was not a very long one, but he got it absolutely right, because he said this is an important visit, it's an important relationship. He made reference to Shakespeare and to other British authors, and he showed that he's a widely read man, and also a man who wants to be a great friend of this country.
The state visit to the UK has been generating a lot of headlines in the global media. The British newspaper The Guardian ran an op-ed arguing that China is rising as the US declines, and that Britain can't ignore this reality. Meanwhile, Hong Kong's Wen Wei Po newspaper says relations between the two countries have entered a new era because the momentum of China's development continues to be strong. Both sides clearly see great opportunities in ramping up cooperation as they look to take their partnership to the next level.
And for more on the latest discussion about China-UK ties, I'm joined here in the Beijing studio by Mr. Cui Hongjian, who is the director of the Center for European Studies at the China Institute of International Studies. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Meanwhile, in London, we also have someone from the top think tank in the UK, Mr. Roderick Wai, who is the Associate Fellow at the Asia Program at Chatham House in London. Both of you, welcome to our program. First of all, we are talking about a community of shared interests. Exactly what are these shared interests? Mr. Cui, how do you understand when the Chinese President Xi Jinping was trying to make the similar remark?
Yes, I think that when we talk about this shared interest between China and the UK, I think firstly, maybe a focus should be economic and trade, finance, and everything. I mean, this cooperation between two countries. Because if we believe that now we are living in a globalized world, so I think certainly between China and the UK, we are getting more and more, deeper and deeper.
Yes,
independent, yeah, interdependent relations. And so if we have this very, very good basis, we can do something more. For example, now China and the UK, we want to get some more political consensus, and also we want to do some more joint effort to deal with some global level and regional level challenges and so on.
What are these political consensus?
For example, I think this time from both two countries, two governments, I think they will sign a political document, which means both two countries, both two governments, they want to have a long-term guideline for this cooperation, including political, international affairs, economic and trade, everything.
I see. Mr. Wai, though, what is your understanding of this shared interest? Is it merely just trade and economic ties, and after that, let's look for some meanings as well, politically? Or actually, there are real stuff that could really lift the relations to a new height, as they say?
Well, this is a very deep relationship in many ways, as your introductory piece showed. I think for the moment in this visit the big focus is very obviously on trade, commercial and economic ties. In the longer term it is important for Britain and indeed for other countries in the world to work out a long-term stable relationship with China. We have a lot of problems in this world that need joint efforts to deal with them. One thinks of things like climate change, terrorism, these kind of things. There are big issues that cannot be handled by any one country alone, and we need joint efforts to do that.
Mr. Wai, what you said has been repeated so many times by scholars throughout the years, but let me ask you one fundamental question. Whether there is going to be real cooperation depends on whether there's going to be real mutual trust between the two countries. And where does the mutual trust come from? Where does the necessity of closer political relationship come from? Some say, Mr. Wai, that has a lot to do with whether the UK could recognize the fact, as many Chinese believe, that China is rising. It is not a trend that can be prevented, and also how the UK can ride that trend to look for its own future. How much do you think inside your country thoughts are being given in that front?
You're absolutely right that China's power and status and influence is growing. This is based fundamentally on the growth of the Chinese economy in the last few years, but also China's political and indeed military influence in some areas is increasing. This is an established fact, and it is important for other countries to appreciate that China will have new global interests that it seeks to protect and promote. But at the same time, China will need to become a much more integrated part of the international community, working together with other nations to find solutions to the big global problems. You talk about building trust and that kind of thing. This takes time. There are issues, there are sensitive issues that remain between our countries, and they will continue to be part of that relationship. Issues such as human rights that has been raised in this country, issues such as Hong Kong. These will not go away, they will remain part of the relationship. And it is important for both sides to appreciate the position that the other side has on this.
Mr. Wai, we noticed inside your country, some, especially from the opposition party and also critics in the society, has been accusing the government, the administration at least, of quote-unquote kowtowing to China. On the other hand, it seems that the majority of the administration members and also the policy direction of the UK has full understanding of where China is and how UK should react to that. I mean, in a democracy like yours, of course, there will be different voices. How do you think wise people in your country should shape these kind of discussions?
I think there will always be differences about approaches, not just to China, but to any major country in the world. You're right, Britain is a democracy and different voices will be heard. But there are some fundamental issues that we all need to recognize. You're right, China's economic power is growing. China is part of the global world. What happens in China has an effect on the rest of the world, and as we have seen in recent cases. At the same time, it is a challenge for all of us to develop an effective global community to meet the challenges that we face together, and also to appreciate the differences of view, the differences of social system that go to make up the community in which we live.
Mr. Cui, here in Beijing, two things very unique about the UK. First of all, UK has witnessed the ups and downs of civilization like China's back in the 18th and 19th century. Meanwhile, UK has also been a country that has experienced its own ups and downs historically in history, and witnessed other powers such as the United States rising while its own power declining to a certain extent, even though it is still playing a very significant role in our world today. Meanwhile, it seems that the UK at this moment is more open to the differences, even ideological differences, that China has with its own country, for example, with the UK itself, and therefore has certain kinds of respect as to different paths and roads countries can take. How do you think these kinds of qualifications will be able to enable the UK to understand China better, and maybe in the future, gradually, to build this mutual trust better? And is it going to be safer, quote unquote, for China to work with the UK with the understanding that the UK has full knowledge on these two fronts?
Yes, I think it's a very, very, very interesting question. If we touch the issue is how could it, I think perhaps it would be a very difficult way exactly for China, the UK, to reach some more, even especially political mutual trust. And especially if we take everything into account, is how big a difference of this political system between two countries, and also how about this attitude to differences exactly. But I would like to say that maybe there is a showcase of this Chinese logic through this visit by Mr. Xi is, firstly, China will take aside some differences between two countries, even between two societies, say that, okay, now we just do something easier. For example, how about the economic trade? Because it looks like there are less.
But China is doing trade and economic ties with every country.
Yes.
Not necessarily just the UK.
Yes. But maybe we will go to another issue, is how about the nature of UK, just like you mentioned. It used to be, the hegemony in the world. Maybe I think there must be some special feeling from UK when it look at this maybe a big game now between China and the US. As the past, I mean,
China
hegemony.
does not believe
Yes.
it is a world that China versus the US. I'm not sure whether UK is thinking that way, but on that front, let me go back to you, Mr. Wai. What about that? I mean, UK over the past few years seem to have been making its own choices. For example, leading some of the European countries to join AIIB, Asia Infrastructure Investment Bank, even though the United States is not necessarily at the very beginning a supporter of the idea. And also the UK has been talking about joining China's Belt and Road initiatives to support the infrastructure building, and even in talks with China about the high-speed rail and nuclear facilities. Will the UK, as a self-positioned, become the best partner of China inside the Western countries? What qualifications do you have to make sure that could happen? Will the public support the idea, and how sustainable will the idea be? Mr. Wai.
I think it is a challenge, both for China and the UK, to develop a long-term, sustainable relationship. The economic side of things is perhaps easier because we all live in a global world, and there are common economic interests that we can develop together. But there do remain significant political challenges. I don't think it's a question of Britain siding with China or Britain siding with the US in these kind of things. I think it's a question of finding a way to bring China into the world community in a more positive fashion. I think the relationship between China and the United States is of a completely different magnitude from that with the UK. It is the fundamental relationship for China, the fundamental bilateral relationship for China in a way that the UK isn't.
I see. Final question for you, Mr. Cui. Will pragmatism, practiced seems to be by both administrations here in China and also in the UK, carry the bilateral relation further? How much further can it really serve? Pragmatism.
Yes, exactly. Now we do have so many words to describe this kind of, ambitions from both two governments. Say that we need to have a golden area for this bilateral relationship in another 5 years, and then 10 years, and then maybe a long time, like exactly. But I think that, of course, we need to understand how about this special time now for this visit, because it's just the beginning of this second decade for this comprehensive strategic partnership between China and UK. So we need to have some new definition for this kind of bilateral relations. Of course, maybe it's just from kind of demand from some government like that. And also, I think one more thing is, I think China now is trying to contribute more some thinking from its own. Especially we're just talking about how about this, the concept of the community of a shared interest. It's just, I think this time it's a very, very good chance for Chinese government to practice its some idea, which want to, could be contributed to the world
Very
and to maybe the
interesting.
new international order. Exactly.
This is a testing ground for both countries, it seems, on
Yes,
many
sure.
of the interesting ideas that they can carry further
Yeah.
in terms of their own development. Thank you so much, Mr. Cui Hongjian, here in Beijing with us, and also in London, Mr. Roderick Wai. Thank you. Thank you for being with us.